You wanna get rid of the fear. It's not gonna be happening by removing the object of your fear. It's gonna happen by being present with the thing that you are afraid of. Ayahuasca can be painful if you don't want, but if you say to yourself honestly, yeah, I want to deal with those things. I want to see the truth. A change can come. Our culture is based on constant distraction and constant stimulation and chasing and doing things. And we feel like if we're not doing something, we're wasting our time.
Tata Mundo, a guide, a photographer, and the founder of the Psychonauta Foundation, a sanctuary of healing and exploration, merging ancient shamanic practices with modern therapeutic techniques.
Now rooted in the jungles of northern Peru, Tata Mundo's work bridges the gap between art and medicine, creating a space where primal traditions and personal transformation converge. He scouted paths of self-discovery through breath, body, and song.
Ayahuasca itself, there is a lot of fear. People are afraid of doing it. And I do have conversations now and then, and people are like, no, I'm afraid. Is there anything to fear, or what is there to fear?
Well,
Mundo, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on as a guest. And the question I want to start with is, tell me about what it's like living in the Amazon rainforest, having built a retreat center for ayahuasca that pulls people from every corner of the world, including myself.
hmm well, the short answer is great. I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. I mean, I kind of left behind the previous life, which was traveling the world and, doing assignments as a photographer, as a guide, and all over the world. And so it sounds like glamour. It sounds like glamorous. Sounds like very attractive. It wasn't in the end because it was more like an addiction, or for the next big thing. So everything aligned, and I ended up here. But from the perspective of, like, let's say somebody who's not involved in the plant medicine, who was watching my life from the outside, it would be like, look, that's what the drugs are leading to. He was successful photographer, and now he's somewhere in the bushes taking drugs. For me, it's the best thing that happened. And to answer how is living here is like, is everything that I need is here, and it's quite complex. There's ups and downs, of course, and challenges. But maybe the best answer is like I can't really go anymore for long holidays. I go and I just want to go back when I'm out there. I think it's more about, in general, about living in nature. I mean, if I could go and visit somebody who lives in an off-grid place like that somewhere else, yeah, that's fine. But I'm not tempted too much anymore to go to, so-called Babylon of concrete and restaurants and whatnot, not for a long time. So here I got everything, yeah, not just the nature, but also the world coming to me. Like the people who come here, they deliver the part that might have been missing if I was just a hermit and lived here on my own or with my family. So they deliver the meaning, they deliver stories, they deliver cultures, that they come from. And most of all, yeah, the meaning, the purpose of the thing, because compared, for example, to the previous jobs that I did in the past, like guiding people, in Africa and Asia for adventure expeditions, interesting expeditions in interesting places. But this one is much better because, people know what they come for. Yeah, they come usually with serious intentions. And so we cut straight to the interesting thing and not play the small talk and, don't go, yeah, like tourism can be sometimes very superficial. So yeah, I'm getting the best of both worlds. I'm getting the remote nature, that I'm here. And now combined with the technology that, we're talking now by Starlink, and I can have all this entertainment and everything that the internet provides, and combined with the thing that people bring, the guests that bring, and all visitors that come here that bring, couldn't be better, in my opinion.
I find you very interesting, man. 'Cause from the moment I arrived at the airport, you're very I would say, direct. Is like, you're here, you're providing a service. You picked us up and you brought us to the camp. There was, I mean, there was been 20 of us, I think. in total. And then, but we arrived and there was a food platter. Everyone sat around in the, I don't know what you call it, like the entrance hut, which is quite a large one, and we all had our, I suppose, the Last Supper. But you started to tell us some stories, and you shared, how the first time that you left Poland, you came to Ireland. You had an interest in the Celts, and was it the mythology?
Everything, yeah. In Ireland, actually, it was maybe more music first. I mean, it's so long ago that I don't remember which came first. But my first kind of like pilgrimage place was O'Donoghue's pub in Dublin, where the Dubliners used to meet. But then right after that, when we got out of Dublin, hitchhiking out of Dublin, we went to sleep in the Tara Hill on actually on top of the, I don't know if you've ever been there. There's this kind of mount where there's a cave inside with
Yeah.
the carvings in the rock. I think it's called the Mound of the Nial of Nine Hostages. And so we pitched the tent right on top of that. It was strange that it's not like, there's no security or anything like that. But I felt like, it felt like literally immersing myself in the stories and the myths that I was before just reading about or heard about. Yeah, so it was kind of like a combination of musical and spiritual pilgrimage.
Mm. So you are somewhat. I mean, somewhat. You are a big adventure, and that's just, I suppose, the first of many. You've shared other stories as well about going to Africa, different types of medicine, different types of tribes. What was it about ayahuasca that really pulled you in?
Well, it's very direct experience, yeah. Like, let's say, compared to a lot of other spiritual traditions, whether alive, or that you can just read about, like the Celtic one. Well, not to offend anybody, but like, it's a thing of the history to a large extent. But also compared to the living ones, ayahuasca doesn't require much belief. Yeah, I mean, you can just write, you can dive into it, and immediately there's things flowing. It doesn't mean that you got all the answers. There's gonna be much, much more to come and nuances and details, as you progress in that. But you can start straight away and have some kind of impact and some kind of result. So for my personality, which is quite impatient, it's much more attractive than, let's say, meditation. That like you gotta do this for 10 years before you get some glimpses of something. So I've been always like that, That's why I did drumming. That's why I did photography. Because, with the drumming, you can start straight away. You're gonna be shit drummer at the beginning, but you're making some sounds and some rhythms. With the photography, it's the same, to make a simple photo, it's easy. You're gonna progress and get better, but okay, something's coming out of that. So my impatient personality gets motivated, and the same was with ayahuasca. And then, of course, on so many different levels, yeah, it was not just a creative thing. It was not just a thing that would satisfy part of my personality or part of my ego, but it delivered on physical level, on emotional level. It gave me peace. It gave me, clean and healthy pissing because I started with issues with my bladder and kidneys, and it healed that. So it just was developing more and more on different levels. And of course, I got hooked and I made it a full-time job or occupation first, and now a full-time job as well.
Was that the intention to move to the Amazon, or did that just kind of unfold when you started to take an interest in ayahuasca?
Oh, well, I first started traveling, I first started coming back and back to the Poland and again to the Amazon. Then I started traveling on my own first, documenting different places and shamans, and then guiding people, bringing groups with me. And eventually in 2015, I came and it was actually supposed to be just for the winter, but something's happened, something's aligned, and I ended up staying here full time. And little later got land, started building the place. So it was not the
Wh-
intention to live, but it was coming, yeah, because before, when my mother was alive, she was sick with cancer and then kind of deteriorating from that for many years. So I was still coming back to Poland. Like there was still a cord that I couldn't cut. So when she died in 2015, this was released, and there was nothing else that was calling me back, or kind of, I could, I could start sailing full time.
It's not just any retreat center too. Like I've looked before I visited, I looked on retreat.guru, the website, and you're actually the best rated, I I think, in the world. My memory serves me.
Well, these are, the rankings and comparisons that some sites will do. I wouldn't say that, what does it even mean the best? Yeah. It's,
What I mean
it
is though
just,
people have had a lot of people have had very positive experiences and have reviewed on that.
I guess so. Yeah. That's what
Yeah.
why we are here still after 9 years.
But it's not just. I was amazed, but I didn't know what to expect. First of all, I just jumped into it, and I only intended to do 10 days, obviously. But I was having such a really good experience because it's huge as well. How many acres?
The land we have around 30 hectares. I
Yeah,
don't know, in acres, I think it's double, no?
I'm not even sure, but I didn't know what to expect, but like how you have like transformed that land into I don't even know how to, like, nearly like a paradise where you can live in it and have an
Hmm.
experience with yourself and with nature isn't like, I mean, where else can you get that in the world? I don't know,
Well,
and
that's true that, the possibilities are here because it's kind of Wild West, like even for the price we could get the first pieces of land we were buying, it was like $500 a hectare. So I could never do this anywhere else. And it gave a possibility. And also the way, things are done here, the way we were doing them at least. It was very organic. So what I mean by that, we didn't have money to invest and build a whole center straight away. So it was gradual. It was, house by house and then growing and expanding. And that also, I think it was good because we were not jumping into something we would not be ready for. Yeah, like if I invest, build all the houses and start working straight away with 15 people, it's gonna be a mess because I wouldn't be prepared as to deliver what they come for. So it was like that, a tree would fall, okay, a clearing in the forest open up, and we have some savings, so we build another hut, and we started from virgin forest, and now we have two centers, in each of them, several huts and the infrastructure. So it was a process over the years of growing, just like the plants around us grow and the ayahuasca that we've planted years ago and everything together, no?
the when you started initially, was it always a silent retreat?
No, we did many things. We did both dietas and open retreats, and even traveling retreats, meaning part of it is in the Amazon and part of it is in the Andes. And eventually, we've focused on the dietas, and over the years, we've developed a strong container and discipline around the plant dieta work. And now, like year and a half, I've also opened a second branch where the open retreats are happening. So the ones that are more relaxed with the restrictions to give access to the people who are not ready for the dieta. Yeah. So it was changing over the years.
And why did you choose the dieta? Is it the Shipibo tradition?
It is a tradition from here, not just Shipibo, in the Western Amazon, in Peru especially, also a bit in Bolivia, in Ecuador, not everywhere, but this tradition of master plant dietas are a foundation of the shamanism, of the work of healing and learning as well. And it resonated with me for many reasons. And then when we started doing and started and got committed to that, I could see the benefits in the people that would come to us and hear from them. It's not just my perspective, but hear from them saying that, the structure of the dieta helped them perhaps the same way or even more than the ayahuasca itself. It is also because people come from far away, and you can drink ayahuasca everywhere now. You can order it online and drink it somewhere in Spain or whatever. So if somebody comes over a long distance and burns this fuel and spends this money, I think it's worth doing this in a more serious way. And also the people who come, especially for the long-term data, the people who come, they are more serious also about this. Yeah, it's not just like on their bucket list to do, but they are serious to do the work. In a long dieta, they can do a lot of work and go deep. So it's like a win-win for everyone. And well, I love it, and that's what we do now, alongside the open retreats as well. No.
Mm. It isn't an easy experience. very challenging but very rewarding. And one of the things I initially did ask was like, are there any longer spaces available? And you says there are not at the moment. This is before I arrived, but people tend to drop out.
Yes, yes, it happens.
Yeah, why do people drop out?
Yeah, as you say, because it may be difficult. Yeah, it is difficult for many reasons, and personal reasons may be different. But in general, you're challenged by. I think the most that you're challenged with is the by boredom and by emptiness, by basically not being able to do a lot. Yeah. And this is because our culture is based on constant distraction and constant stimulation and chasing and doing things. And we feel like we habituate ourselves that if we're not doing something, we're wasting our time. Yeah. So that's why people will go to some retreats that are filled with activities. And like, if it's 2 a.m., if it's 2 p.m., we have a mud bath, and now is yoga, and now is something. And people are like, okay, I'm buying now good healing. I'm buying good stuff because there's so many things that I'm getting for my money. Yeah? So here's
Mm,
opposite. Yeah, it's very basic, and there's a lot of emptiness. There's a lot of silence and time to be with yourself, and that is what can be difficult. That is what can be scary sometimes. Yeah, but that is also what is powerful, and that is what delivers. Yeah, when you sit with that, when you are kind of true to your commitment. So yeah, some of people will honestly say, yeah, it's too tough. Some will go into something I would say in many cases are like excuses. I mean, they are perfectly fine. I mean, I respect that. But why quite common thing that I hear is, for example, well, I hear from the medicine everything I need to hear, and now I gotta go and implement it in my life. I hear, for example, it's about family, so I gotta go and be with my family. Yeah, it's a
mm,
very valid understanding, But what I'm always suggesting is, if you want to truly be able to be present with your family, then try to complete your commitment and be present here with yourself. Because now, I mean, even from one ayahuasca, you can understand, what is it all about. But then you're gonna go and you're gonna hear something that you don't like from your mother, and you're gonna fall apart. You're gonna set the trigger's gonna be set, and because you didn't have the patience to practice before. Of course, it's not a guarantee that you complete the dieta and you are done and you are enlightened, and it's nothing like that. But the practice, like when people talk about the integration, for example, in the context of psychedelic work, well, that integration is not just, something you do later with the therapist or something that happens after the process. It happens alongside in the dieta. This is what the silence is for. This practice of the patience. This is what it's for. So yeah, it's something important, no? But yeah, I understand that people have different needs. We try to communicate it clearly, but for somebody it may not be the thing. So that's why the open retreats also are here as an option. Yeah, I don't wanna force people into things. It's important that somebody who's joining the dieta, they know they're joining for. So that's why we're asking, are you aware you're gonna be a lot on your own? Are you aware there's gonna be silence and no socializing with people for the most part of it? And then if somebody makes an informed choice, that's great, yeah, because then we can work and do serious stuff.
yeah. For me, when I arrived, it was like it was nice to meet everyone from like all over the world, and we were all sitting around having the food. But then it's like all of a sudden, it's just like I'm never going to chat to most of these people ever again. As soon as I go back to my when I go to my tambu this evening, I'm going to see them every second day at ceremony, but I'm not even going to speak to them. And if they finish on day 10, whoever finishes on the day I finish is the only people that I'm going to see. So it can be quite it's very unusual, and it's a lot of them. I think for me it was a lot to process, but I think once I got into it, I was like, okay, this is it. But the first few days were really, really challenging in the sense of boredom. I was like, I couldn't sit still. I was up and I was down. I was like going getting musical instruments, even though I can't even play music. But I was trying to find ways to to just make use of my time. And because I was just in, I was very energetic as well. And but it took me, I think, until about day 8 or day 9 to finally break into a rhythm in the sense of I started writing. I wrote every day, but at the start it was like slow. But I think on like day 8, I felt like I had a breakthrough on the last ceremony of the first, and then that's when I was like, yeah, I want to stay longer. And the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed it too. Like being in the
Mm.
tambu, but you just have your bed and you only have a mesh between you and the jungle and all the animals and the insects. Um, the only thing I can use to describe it, it is a bit of paradise. It's that like just having nothing else around you and just tuning into that is it's quite an unusual experience and one that I've found very very transformational. Like that silence even in itself, like not just the ayahuasca but the sitting in the silence in on your own, being alone, like that is powerful, like so powerful. Like writing a lot, I done a lot of art as well, like at a scrapbook with crayons, and it was it was amazing. It was amazing. But I also found towards the end there was times when I wanted to quit. No, not quit because I was bored or anything, but there was times in the ceremony, because after a while your body starts to, it's getting tired. I think it might have been day 30. It might have been into the early 30s. I was like, I'm exhausted. After each ceremony, I remember lying on the bed after purging, and I was like, I was just curling up, and I was like, oh, that's it, I'm done. But I'm like, nah, I'm just, you're nearly there, you're nearly there, you're nearly there, you're nearly there. Um, but yeah, it was quite phenomenal. And then the women, they seemed to be the most powerful. It was mostly men that dropped out of my time there, people coming and going, but the
Hmm.
women seemed to be the ones that last the time. Is
Yeah,
that the
maybe.
case?
Well, sometimes I wouldn't generalize, but I like to generalize. So I would say that, men are often addicted to action more. Yeah. So it's easier to surrender. It's easier this letting go sometimes for women. Yeah. It's a generalization, but stereotypically it can happen like that. So for example, to be weak, to allow yourself to be weak, yeah, to be vulnerable, which happens later in the dieta when you're body is deprived of all these, stimulating substances and oil and the things that make us feel good, and you feel like weak and depleted, it may be an issue for some men. Yeah, just like when we get sick, for example, with flu, and oh my God, I'm dying because I have a fever and some flu. It's like a joke, but a lot of men, me included, we are like that. But people are different, yeah. Different challenges, different things that they find. Mind is so crazy creature, and what it tells us. Like, look, when you end up, for example, when you end up arrested for 30 days, yeah, and that's it, like your lawyer tells you there's nothing he can do, it may be actually easier to accept it, to let go, than when you've signed for a retreat that you are for 30 days and you think part of you is like, it's going to be good for me, and part of it is going to be like, what's this masochism for? And then there's a constant negotiation, and it can actually make things more challenging, yeah, even if it's like within your choice, and that choice is spoiling, that option of choice is spoiling the process. So yeah, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's the boredoms. Different things get to you, yeah. In this process, you can adjust things, yeah. Like we have people going. Some will ask for more food, we can give them more food. Some will go completely fasting, yeah. Some will do a lot of exercise and writing or journaling, to fill their time. And others are like, passive and just in their hammock and just being. And that's a beautiful way of doing this as well.
I feel like you were talking about me there for the last sentence because I wanted more food. I did some exercise. I was writing, but there was part of me wanted more food because I noticed myself started to lose weight, and I started to worry about that. I was like, shit, I'm losing muscle here. So then I went through a few days of doing exercise, but fucking hell. See, when I went into ceremony, then I came out dead the next day. It just exhausted me even more, so
Yeah.
it had the counter effect, and I had to be mindful of that then too, because then that knocked into each day, and the day after ceremony, then eventually I think into the mid 20 days, I noticed the day after ceremony became basically a day of rest. I just lie in the
Hmm.
hammock and recover because my body was tired. and it was easy to be still, you know. And then the day of ceremony, which would be the second day, then I would be energized again, and I would get into my creativity. So I'd write. So I think routine became important for me too. You know,
Hmm.
kind of helped me. The food as well. I actually have to say, see that the food was excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed the food. It was
Hmm.
amazing. It really helped me develop my relationship with food again. I didn't realize how much shit food I ate in my life. You know, it was something that was probably one of the most important things I took from it too. Like ever since I came out, I'm like, right, I see the value of like good food. You know, organic. I'm not saying that I always eat organic because where I am, it's just not always available. But like eating, you know, I would say raw foods or foods that are not processed or takeaways and stuff like that. There, it's changed. It changed my whole outlook on it, you know, and that has been very healing. Believe it or not, the
Hmm.
food. And then I heard
Yeah.
others say to me the food wasn't good, and I was like, "What? Were you eating the same food as me?"
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah,
well, things are subjective. Of course, it's not an easy thing. It's not like a pleasure-based retreat, but you can actually find pleasure when you stop pushing for it. You know, that's what happens for a lot of people. They take a step back and find more pleasure in the simple things than for the whole life of chasing of more and more stimulation and more intensity. You know, so that's what a large part of the dieta is about. Also, yeah, it's like literally retreat instead of
mm,
retreat, lay back. Okay, let's see, what's important, yeah? When we, for example, reach for food out of emptiness, out of boredom, out of the need to stimulate our senses, and when it's actual hunger and the need to nourish ourselves, no? So then when you step out from that, of course, you're not gonna go that extreme. You're gonna use spices, you're gonna use salt, but you may consider, it may be an inspiration for a more conscious choices.
mm. The food was very. I mean, you could call it basic in the sense of what we could typically feed ourselves, but something that I really enjoyed. Why is it important for the dieta to have it that way and 2 meals per day?
Well, 2 meals is the choice we make here. For a lot of people, there's a traditional dieta in the forest. They eat once and they eat even less than here. And so the general idea it's quite basic to nourish you, to give you, the sustenance, but not to provide the distraction, not to stimulate your senses, yeah, so that you can hear or connect better with the plants that you're dieting, that are more subtle, their energy is more subtle, compared to ayahuasca, their effect to be noticed and to fully penetrate, to break your defenses also, yeah, when you are well fed and full of this stimulation, you just like too high on yourself to notice certain things that come from the outside. So sometimes this is what it's for also, yeah. So it's designed based on this indigenous tradition, is including certain things that people don't eat here, but they are okay from the process. Like cauliflower and broccoli and these kind of things. It's not something that people would know here in the Amazon. But one thing that's some of the things that are important is no oil, no spices, no salt, no sugar. Yeah, so all of those things that are pleasure delivering, and they are everywhere in the modern food. Yeah, especially if you don't eat so healthy. But even for people who do, yeah, everywhere there is something, some spices, something to create the sensory pleasure. No, so that's a bit of the monastic part of this here, and it's just part of it. Yeah, the dieta just is not just about the food, but it's an important part of it.
Mm. Well, for me, the food was pleasurable. You know, it gave me a new experience and one that I really enjoyed, really enjoyed.
Hmm.
Other things are so we're in silence and there's obviously no talking. But one of the things that is offered is you do have the choice to speak with the facilitator, not the day after ceremony, but 2 days after ceremony. Why is that? Why do you offer that? And why not the day after?
The possibility of this consultation is another compromise, because as I say, this traditional indigenous dieta, you are alone in the forest, nobody comes, you just you and nature. But for the Western mind, usually, or not for everyone, there are people who do it different ways. But yeah, for some people, they need some external guidance, external perspective, sometimes to assure them that they are not going crazy, sometimes to help them interpret what happened in the ceremony. So that option is there. Yeah, we never impose it unless we can see that somebody is really worrying in some way in their behavior. But normally people decide. Yes, some will go for 10, 20, 30 days completely on their own, not asking for it, and others will do it every second day. The reason why it's delayed, why we keep that 1 day silent after the ceremony, is to allow even to those people who cling to the external perspective, or who need those consultations, to allow them at least 1 day to process things on their own, to sit with the things that happened, to feel, to be able to find their answers. And it often happens so, yeah, that somebody is really in the need of talking about what happened because they were disturbed by what happened in the ceremony, and by the end of the day or next day, the answers come to them, and they don't need it anymore. And that's the best answers because, I can have my opinion, I can have my perspective based on the experience or on what I am seeing, but it can be still rejected. Yeah, it's just like a lot of great psychotherapists, will not help you if you're gonna be pushing away what they are pointing to. But if the answers come from the inside, from your own understanding, then hopefully they're gonna be more permanent. They're gonna be better accepted. So that's why the silence is there, instead of, I'm sure you are aware that in the Western setting, when there is the ayahuasca ceremonies over the weekends, then the first thing that happens in the morning is the sharing circle. So immediately people start talking about what happened, yeah, and sharing that, and it can be helpful, yeah, especially for people who live isolated, who don't have, friends interested in those kind of things, and so it will be helpful to make themselves heard. But there's also a price for that. There's also a limitation, meaning the more you talk about something, the more you remember your story than the actual experience. Yeah, the experience itself is so much richer than what you can summarize with words and express your feelings and your emotions. And so in a way, you kill the experience, even the thought itself. Yeah, when somebody knows it's a practice of meditation, we are aware the thought itself, it narrows down everything. Yeah, when you think about something that is happening, and when you talk about it, it's even more simplified. And so there are people who say, I heard it from one shaman that he doesn't even speak with his wife about his ayahuasca visions and content. It's between him and ayahuasca. Yeah, here we provide that option, but it is a choice of each person.
Mm. And yeah, the ayahuasca itself, it's it's both. I always describe it as crazy beautiful. You don't know what to expect, but you can have something beautiful too. Um, but before we get to that as well, like what I really enjoyed was it was so nice to retreat after ceremony. Obviously we come together on day two, day four, etc., and we have a ceremony together, and then we wake up in the morning. Obviously, we sleep there together and retreat back to our own Tambu for another night. And there's something about that coming together again, even though you don't speak, that like that tribe, that feeling that we're in this together, that there's a lot of power and strength in that too. For me, I look forward to seeing the people. Even if it was just a wink of the eye to acknowledge that we're here and we're in this together, and it was encouraging as well. And I think that in itself is like I feel like I developed a unique bond with some of the people there. We went through this experience together and seeing them out, people of all ages and all walks of life, which is really interesting because everyone's so different. And as you said, you just like all cultures of the world come to you. Um, and that was very transforming too. And one of the other things is like the shamans themselves, which I didn't really know at the time, and I only understood it after, was the Icaros, the songs that they sing, and you too. You the songs that come through the medicine when you're in ceremony. Can you tell me more about that? I'd like to hear more about the your perspective, because you also were telling me that you don't know what it is, but it comes through you, and you're like a channel for whatever is coming through you in that moment.
Well, that's the way I see it, what the Icaros are compared to the songs, yeah, that they not come from the mind so much. They not come from rehearsed, beautiful, prepared piece of music, but it's a kind of challenging, channeling. It's a kind of thing that grows out of the connection in the present moment with the plants, yeah. That's the way it is for me, and I think that's the way the Shipibo Icaros as well are working. So they've learned them over the years, but it's not like learning the songs and memorizing the songs. There are things that you can hear, like if you are sitting longer here, you will hear certain things again and again. But it's more like juggling pieces of the content and using them in a freestyle way according to the moment, according to the situation, according to the person that they are working with and what is going on with them, and according to what the medicine also in a way pushes. Yeah. Sometimes sometimes its connection is not always gonna be there the same way. Yeah? So sometimes you put more of yourself and more of the conscious decision of yourself and coming from the mind or from what you're seeing and deciding to do, and sometimes it's truly pushed out by the force of the medicine, and you feel like it's not really you, it's something speaking, singing through you. Yeah, that's the way I see that. And I think that's the way also to connect to something beyond reason, beyond rational mind, even to the collective body memory. Yeah, like what I mean by that is I am who I am. Yeah, my experience is composed both of the years here in the Amazon and the practice with the people from here, but also from all these other experiences in the world, and of who I am and of my ancestors and so on. So if I want to rediscover that, and a lot of people are looking for that, yeah, all over the world, especially, for example, in European cultures that lost the connection because of Christianity, because of other things that happened the same like here. Yeah, here it happened 500 years ago. In my homeland, it happened 1,000 years ago, but it was the same process of replacing the indigenous ways of interacting with reality, interacting most of all with nature, and practical technologies of shamanism, of working with nature, replacing this with external knowledge. And in case of Christianity, Bible-based, beliefs. So the way to rediscover that, I think it's the true way, the one that's really like working in today, 1,000 years later, is not to reenact the rituals and copy, the things based on what we can find in some historical writings or what archaeology can point to, but it's through the introspection and through the reconnection with the nature, and both the nature outside of our lands, the trees of our lands and so on, but also the nature that you carry in your body. Yeah. So with the help of the medicine, I think that is what is happening. Yeah. That this non-rational genetic, let's say, ancestral knowledge and memory that we are carrying in us is coming to the surface. Yeah. And when you think of it, we are thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of sitting around the fire and different kind of trance technologies, and only 2,000 years maximum, of scripture-based, linear, mind-based, ways of perceiving the world and interacting with the world. And that includes also, I think, making music, especially this kind of shamanic trance music that should flow from the connection to the source, and not so much from the mind. Yeah.
Mm. Is it true then that what they say is like these songs or these beats, whatever, however you like to describe them, that they're like healing in the sense of it's like channeling these sounds through in a way that's to be sung in a way that's to heal others or help others heal themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. Yeah, and one of the reasons is because in some of the traditions of the region, for example, Shipibo, normally the patient doesn't drink ayahuasca. Yeah, that's the job of the shaman, and they work with songs only. So the only way of interacting, apart from tobacco also, and other tools like that, the main tool of the work are songs. So the patients are receiving the songs, and they are dealing usually not with just like spiritual issues that are less tangible or less easy to verify whether the healing or how the healing is happening, but often with physical problems that they are getting rid of through the process of work that doesn't involve them drinking ayahuasca. Yeah. So that's interesting because, like when you see the discussions in the modern psychedelic revival or the modern approach to that, and the question is being asked, should the therapists have their own experience with the psychedelics, and they're not even sure of that. Here is opposite, yeah, like it's all that matters is the connection of the shaman with the medicine world, and then it's secondary whether the patient will actually take the substance.
Mm. I could see when the shaman would sing, there was a few nights, I don't know if it was 2 nights or whatever, but one of the nights I could see all of his sounds. So when he was singing, he would go around every night, every ceremony around to the bottom of everyone's bed and sing for 5 to 10 minutes. But one of the nights, I could see all of his sound. The sound that was coming out of him, it was bizarre. Like it was this, it
Hmm.
was like it was in this tunnel. Obviously, he was the start of it, and the sound was coming out and just out and around me. I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe it, but it was all these little patterns, but in a perfect bubble.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a common knowledge here. Yeah, that's what their visual culture is also based on. Before it was mostly pottery, and now the textiles. But all of those embroidery and all of those patterns are representation of things that can be seen in the ayahuasca visions, and that can be actually sung. So they can sung say specific patterns. There are patterns energies of specific plants. And so this way they can call on those energies of these plants and embed them in the patient, in the person, and so that the person is affected, is infused with the energy of the plant, even if they never took it physically. Yeah. So both are usually happening during the dieta and synergy. You're ingesting the plant and then you're receiving these energies, but yeah, this is a common experience that people will see music in a visual way, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's also physical. So those Icaros, they have a physical effect, and they can be felt in different ways. Very common one is, for example, to help people purge and release something. So that's a funny sometimes misunderstanding when somebody says, like, I was sitting there and feeling okay, and then the shaman sang to me and I felt sick. Well, no, you didn't feel sick. You actually feeling you're getting better. Yeah? In English language, to vomit described as getting sick, it's just telling more about our culture than about the actual process, because even the animals, they have dogs and cats that they will find the balance through eating something and then puking the imbalance. That's what's happening. And sometimes it takes time in the ceremonies, and it can be facilitated by the singing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes is something that feels like annoying, that feels like there's a friction. That friction is there because you are not yet in balance. You are not yet in alignment with the present moment and with yourself. So that's why sometimes the songs make feel like painful, may feel like difficult, because it's a kind of operation. And when the operation is over, you're gonna feel good because the balance has been reestablished.
That's for sure. Yeah, there was times when he would be singing and I would purge, and it was like, why is this happening? So something is happening in my body, whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
And purging would be tough, Mundo. Like, I don't know if you remember me, but holy shit, it was like this channel opened up within me, I don't even, it was like I was roaring into the bucket. It was insane, but it didn't start out like that. But as the more ceremonies went on, the longer I was there, the louder I would roar. And it was just this constant roaring. It became to the point where I started roaring and I had to roar. I was like, I had to let it all go. And then it was like this, I don't know, like trap opened, like a valve or something, and then pop out all the whatever it was coming out of me. But it was like
Hmm.
it was like it came from somewhere else. It wasn't like it came from my stomach. It was like it was
Yeah.
my body was pushing it elsewhere, and then like it popped open and then out it came. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. People experience it like this. I mean, it also depends on personalities, some will just release like quiet, you can just hear the liquid coming out, and others make a big show out of this. And it's not for me to say, like, how much of it is conscious, how much of it is just like it is what it is. Yeah, sometimes it can be contained a bit, sometimes it's just louder and more spectacular. It's part of the game. Yeah, I really, it's almost like when you work long in that, you stop noticing that. It's just like something in
Yeah.
the background. And even when working with people in the beginning, you're like, oh, is there something wrong with this person? And we need to help them. And with experience, like you see all the shamans and like, oh, whatever, they don't even talk about it. This is great. Somebody is puking. That's great. That means that they are gonna be well soon.
Yeah, well, when I've purged, then obviously I felt better, and then I was able to enjoy the experience more as well.
Hmm.
It comes into your body in a different way. But I also remember, when you're lying down, I would be up and I would be down. I remember you at the start saying, sit up and be strong if you can, and I would try and do that, but then I would be down, I'd be up, but I also I would feel these waves in my body, but I would also see them. So it was like I was seeing these waves, but my body was, an energetic waves were moving through me, and then it was like they were bringing me to purge, and then all of a sudden I'd sit up in a split second and have to purge. I don't know how to describe that, but I was seeing the waves coming and bringing me out,
Hmm.
and then there was having to go to the toilet and take a shit, and that would just come on seriously fast, um, and out to the outhouse. And you might have to wait your turn. You had two types of toilets, which was the one on the hole, one with the hole, and then obviously you had a somewhat westernized one where you could sit down on.
Yeah.
Personally, I preferred the hole in the ground. I just felt that it was better for the body, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is physically better. It's a natural position. Yeah.
Mm.
So now we have four toilets. We have two that are squatting and two that are modern, like ceramic and with water and everything. And I'm torn between, because with the modern one has a like bidet to wash your ass, and of course is the comfort and the space. But as for position, squatting position is much healthier. Yeah, that's what I've learned traveling in a lot of the countries that are still doing this way in Asia and in Africa, and I really love it. Yeah, that's the way.
Well, I definitely prefer it, and I seen you put in the new toilets on your Instagram page, and I was like, "Nah, keep it the way it was. That was the best way." But I'm glad you still have the original way. But man, it was tough. You go to the toilet times and it'd be messy because people would have been there before you, and I'm coming there and I'm dizzy and I'm trying to keep my balance, and then I'm going to have to squat, and then I hope I'm going to have to watch in case I don't fall on top of somebody else's. I remember going to the toilet one time and opening the door and there was a rat there, and I was like, oh Christ. So I was like, how do I get this rat out? I really need to go.
We've had even slots, like one day a girl comes out like back into the temple. There's a monkey in the toilet, come on. And in the middle of the
What?
ceremony, and then we went there, and it was a sloth like sticking out of
No,
the hall
no
with his clothes,
way.
and so that could have been quite scary for her because they look kind of like a hunchback, with this big
Mm.
clothes. Of course, very innocent and not dangerous. But in this situation, it was, well, quite funny. I think they come down from the trees because they normally stay up, but they came attracted by the smell of urine. So we found it a couple of nights later also outside when in the place where we used to piss. So they just come sniffing and following the urine, which is a source of salt.
Yes. I was kind I think for me, my biggest fear was a snake. I did not want to go and have to get a snake out. The rat wasn't too bad. I actually says I'll get a few minutes, and then I went back to the temple or back to the temple, and I was like, no, you know what? I need to get this rat out because I really need to go. So I got back in and I shooed it out and managed to go to the toilet.
Hmm.
But I mind one time coming back too, and I was so dizzy. I mean, Natalia, the facilitator, she had to help me back. It was bizarre. I'd never experienced that before. That I was, you know, thought I was here, but I was there. But it was all good. It all worked out. What I really liked about the ceremony too was you're in the temple and there's the mesh between the temple and the outside, but the sound of the jungle, like the sound of the animals, the creatures, it's nearly like they're all in harmony, and like it's like a symphony. Does do
Hmm.
you do you feel that? Do you hear that?
Yeah, I think what ayahuasca does is it helps to bring back that natural state of harmony with the world. Yeah, so in this case is with the jungle, and the jungle is quite intense in terms of sounds at night. Yeah, that's when it's most active, most loud. So when the Icaros are sung, you don't hear so much of it, but later in the night, that's the main thing that puts you to sleep. All of this very, very diverse talking and the sound of the jungle.
Yeah, it was like there was like birds, and then there was like insects, and there was just like it was just like they were all together. And then there was other sounds that I hear. This was kind of after ceremony too, but like during ceremony, I would hear, you know, maybe I get a negative thought, and then I would hear this bird, and it would
Mm.
always be on. It would always make whatever sound. I think I called it the Joker because it sounded like the
Hmm.
Joker out of Batman. But it
Yeah.
always was in tune when I had a negative thought. It was weird, and one of the other girls said the same. I don't. Does many people
Hmm.
say that?
I heard it a few times, yeah, but in general, like the meaning is found, I think, in reality. The way it's found, it's sometimes
Mm,
subjective and surprising, but I think what matters is what we do with that. Yeah. So if the bird is pointing to something that's gonna be useful for your own understanding and growing, then yeah, it's your teacher. And then why would we undermine it? Yeah. Maybe he was pointing to this in your case.
yeah, maybe. And funny you say that. Like that bird was my teacher. That was one thing that I actually tuned into when I was in my own tamboo on my own during the day, chilling out, was I allowed myself to tune into the animals, and there was loads of different kinds of animals that passed by, just strange looking birds, like different kinds of insects, like snakes, frogs, otters, loads. But when I took a moment to just sit with the animal that was in front of me and just like, what's the lesson here? You know, what can I learn from what this animal has to experience living in this environment where it's probably always looking for food and always under threat. Now, which all living animals and insects are, but I think when I was able to do that, I was able to find so many lessons in that.
Hmm.
It was really nice, you know, when you allow yourself the time to tune in to just nature.
Yeah, that's what it's for. Yeah, for the time and the space to actually start listening and seeing. Yeah, because
Mm,
a lot of the issues that people come here with is that their own self is blocking the way and the view of the world. Yeah. And possibility to listen and open the eyes to the outside brings a bit more balance in it. Yeah. Brings the perspective and our own story and our own difficulty doesn't have to be so serious. Yeah. When it's put in the balance of things. What
mm.
you're saying, for example, about the nature being in constant mode of survival, well, that's the way the humans were for so long, and maybe now there are a lot of problems come from the excessive comfort that we are looking for the threat, and the threat is not there. So we're just projecting it and creating anxieties of different kind and the issues to solve because we just addicted to the threat, no? But maybe we can use to not we can use this awareness that we are actually fine and that we are much better off for the gratitude and for enjoying. Yeah, that there's no war, there's no, constant threat of raiders coming and burning your village. The things are good.
Other things that I experienced as well. There was a moment where a new facilitator had come in when I was there,
Yeah.
like an American guy, but seemed very, I don't know, just didn't feel like he was understanding the vibe or the. But I remember him. He seemed to be very upset. I seen him or having words with Natalia one day at the temple. Now I personally found it quite amusing because I there was this guy who I think he really wanted. It's like he really wanted your attention, but
What I mean, it was quite a while ago. You remember his name or?
oh no, I just remember him. But I think what me observing you as a someone guiding this retreat and managing it. You're there to provide a service, and your job is just to provide the facilities, the retreat. But I think this guy came in with what I felt was looking to be to be held by you, or to be
But he was
noticed
a
by
guest
you.
or
No,
guest
no,
or
he was a
facilitator?
facilitator. I think he was
Hmm.
American. He did speak Spanish. He helped out for a few days, but he left before the final ceremony.
Hmm.
Don't know if you remember or
Don't
not. Yeah,
remember.
but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was I did I laughed to myself that day. It was I got a bit of amusement, me and someone else in the temple, because we happened to hear him talking outside. But yeah, because I for me too, I was suppose like I come and I'm like it's going to be nice, and people's going to be really there for me, but like you're not, in the sense of like you provide what you need to provide and you're there to do it on your own. And then I knew in my own mind, then I was like, I need to process that. I'm like, that's my challenge. There was a part of me thinking, oh, like I'm not liked here,
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
know.
know what you mean.
Yeah,
Sure,
but
yeah,
I had to
it is
process
not a
that.
place for feel good kind of, a bubble that you. I want to empower people, yeah, and one of the ways to do it is not to intervene, like this not to intervene when it's not needed, yeah. We are to hold the structure, and even that can feel like intervention for some, but we try to make it, non-personal, about reminding the way things are and about certain rules and so on. But yeah, for some people, especially like when they're coming from spiritual backgrounds of like I am a spiritual person, I go to the retreats and so on. There's a certain tendencies of clinging, yeah, to feel good and light, like literally, oh yeah, I want to go to the light and so on. And it's understood, yeah, because world is a tough place, But the thing is that what is in place for kids, at certain point starts to be out of place, yeah, meaning the kids need to be nurtured more, and also it's a dance between also allowing them to develop and grow and so on. But we can't
Mm,
be kids forever, yeah? We
mhm.
need certain, and that's what I want to give to people. I don't want to make them dependent on our place. So, oh, they're gonna come back here because they feel good here, and then they're gonna go back to the world, the world is a tough place. So that's why, it may be a bit of a tough training in certain ways.
Definitely tough.
Considering everything, considering the discipline of the dieta, and then I'm sometimes in an unpleasant well, not unpleasant, but a difficult position of the policeman, yeah, that has to remind and enforce certain things. But I'd rather have that, that I have a difficult start, and then somebody who is patient goes through the superficialities to something else, than to play with a certain facade and be like, oh, shiny and nice and dressed in white, and then have these other issues that come from that, yeah, that you can see a lot in spiritual circles, the dependency, the guru-like behavior, clinging to things simply, no? There's an interesting concept in coming from the Sufi tradition, especially from Pakistan, called malamatiya. It means literally taking the blame. So it's a certain counter action to being attached to to the sacred, to the sainthood, to the facade, and so that if people become too much of like, oh wow, you're so great, you're my teacher, you're my healer, whatever, those guys would do on purpose things that would be disturbing, that would be even repulsive, that would be like counter the tradition, counter the good manners, and so on. So that to break this superficiality, to break this dualism of light and dark and good and bad, and so allow the people to become more independent and not just like sheep who need who need a shepherd and who need to someone that will be babysitting them. Yeah. So that's a kind of a place that I'm relating to, that I'm coming from. No. um, that's what I can say about it.
But on the counter of that, what I felt then, whenever I finished my time, was I felt like, I met you, I got to know you, and it was not that it was a different, but it's just like I done my time and I was able to share my experience with you, and I was able to connect with you, and I was actually really grateful for that. That there was like this. Ryan, you're here, Ryan. You got to do this. This is what you want to do. And then after that, then it's just like, oh, actually, Mundo's actually a really cool guy. You know,
Hmm.
that's what it felt like for me. And I got to know you, and here I am having this conversation with you now. But
Hmm.
before, during my time, is like, this guy's harsh. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
I
I know what you mean.
yeah, that's what it felt like for me. Because but also I come from a culture where everyone's very nice and stuff like that. There, so it's just like you're so programmed. Not first of all, not that you were not nice, but it's like here that comfort, as you say, the kid,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
having that comfort taken away was a I had to process that too. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Was
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's and that's why some people who are not ready for that would sometimes they would quit. Yeah, but it's not because of me, or maybe I hope it's not just because of me. But I really think that for the important stuff that is happening here, for the trust, for example, you have to choose it. You have to want it. Yeah, it should not be teased. It should not be you cannot really pull people into the light, you cannot pull them into the good stuff. Yeah, so there are sometimes these steps, and this is what in a lot of spiritual traditions they knew about this, about the certain initiations steps, meaning you have to be ready and you have to want it and you have to sometimes break even through. That's what a lot of the teachers were doing, like we're saying, no, no, with you I don't want to work. It's not because I feel better than you, but because you have to prove that you want to go somewhere. Yeah.
yeah,
So in a way, it's contrary to the capitalist setup, yeah, which is all about pleasing, which is all about we are
yeah,
here on the crossroads of hospitality and the healing. So the hospitality part, of course, it's all about the smiling and of course about delivering whatever you want. But for the important stuff that people come here, it's not so simple, yeah. That or we can just follow like if, for example, you are your own enemy, we are our own enemies in many ways. We are blocking the happiness to us. So sometimes you need the unpleasant thing, somebody slap you in the face and tell you, no, no, I'm not gonna buy your bullshit, I'm not gonna dance around your needs because this is what you've been doing all your life. And the more, for example, the higher you are in the society with all the things that insulate you, money and comforts, the harder it was to see the truth. Yeah. So very often the truth is uncomfortable, yeah. The way
mm,
the and to find a way, how to balance those things in this kind of setup when we are used for services like Coma I Demand. Well, I cannot deliver the happiness and free somebody from depression. And if I'm gonna smile more and whatever, wear white clothes, it's not gonna get them anywhere nearer. I think sometimes on the contrary.
yes. And then ayahuasca itself, there is a lot of fear. People are afraid of doing it, and I do have conversations now and then, and people are like, "No, I'm afraid." Is there anything to fear, or what is there to fear?
I think ultimately all the fears are fears of death. Yeah, they are disguised on, and I'm not talking all the fears about ayahuasca. I'm talking literally all the fears is a certain version of the fear of death, and I think the best answer how to deal with this is through acceptance. Yes, We're gonna all die, yeah? Not negating. And the work with ayahuasca is about that, yeah? And it is in objective terms, yeah, if you don't want to go into philosophical side of the things, it is one of the safest way of dealing with the fears. Because you can only deal with the fears by facing them, by going towards them, but you can do it in a way that is objectively dangerous, yeah? When you go into extreme sports, when you go into war zone, that's also, there's also work with the fear, but it can actually damage your physical shell. Yeah, it can actually destroy you. With ayahuasca, even if it feels sometimes like that, yeah, it may feel like you are dying, but you will not. But the powerful thing about this is that because the experience is as real, or even feels more real than the reality we know in the daily
Mm,
life, then it can deliver the healing, the understanding, and the change that is real uh, in that daily life that later follows you in life. Yeah. So, for example, it allows you to relax a bit about all the other fears. And I recognize it in myself. Yeah, I still carry a lot of fears. It's not just gonna that drinking ayahuasca is gonna extinguish them, but it's in a way like a immunity booster. Yeah. So the same way, like I will still carry viruses and bacteria in my body, but because of the way that I live, by exposing myself and not protecting myself from the reality outside and not removing all the things that can be a potential threat, my body becomes more immune. So I see the same way in the spiritual or psychological sense, exposing myself to fears, it's gonna make me more in balance, yeah, and it's gonna be make me more immune, yeah. So
mm,
I still see things coming up always, to the surface, but I know it's just like, it's just a trick of the mind, yeah. It's not to say that there are not objective dangers, yeah, but I should not be stopped by them, yeah, by the fact that somebody told me years ago that this is a funny story and it relates with the toilet thing from before. Years ago, I had a camp, a remote camp, in the jungle, and working with a crazy guy, very out of balance, very like, using a lot of drugs and so on. And he liked to perform, I think subconsciously, a role of a trickster that's, teasing you and sometimes putting fear in you. And he told me a story that he went to the toilet, to the squatting toilet, and there was a ergon, a very poisonous snake, inside in the hole. I never seen it, and I never seen it since. I never had this experience to have a snake in the toilet, but it's always been in the back of my mind ever since. So, like how many experiences of the toilets from now I will still need to get rid of that. Maybe it will never go away. I still
mm.
go to the toilet. I still do my thing, but somewhere in the back of my mind, it's still there. That's the funny thing that we can be stubborn in accepting to trust the reality, yeah? To trust that the things are the way they should be and that they will be fine. And that includes also the possibility that there will be an accident one day. That one day I will be killed on the way to Iquitos by a truck, or maybe I will be bitten by a snake or whatever. But I cannot go from one potential threat to another, constantly worrying and constantly projecting. It's just gonna poison my life, yeah? The actual poison, the actual danger will not come to me,
Mm.
but I will poison myself with that. So that's why, ayahuasca can be painful if you don't want, but if you say to yourself honestly, yeah, I want to deal with those things. I want to see the truth about myself, about my fears, for example. From that truth, from that understanding, a change can come, yeah? And there's no other way but just jumping into it, doing that. I find it fascinating that people can live a whole life without this kind of experience, without seeing themselves in an altered state and seeing those mechanisms that drive them. I don't think it's the only way, and I don't think everybody should be doing ayahuasca like me for continually. But yeah, at least to try and see for yourself, it's worth it.
Yeah, well, I have to say it is impressive that how much ayahuasca you are able to drink. Because I'll be honest, I was glad to finish because I could not drink anymore. And then you were starting another treat. I was like, wow, impressive. But just on that point, snakes. Now, I don't assume there are dangerous snakes around that area.
Of course there are, but we are here for 9 years, including small
Mm,
children, and nobody ever got bitten. Nobody ever
mm,
got any issues. So why would I assume that, oh, I'm gonna be the first one? It is more likely. I mean, I don't want to go into statistics, but
yeah,
are there dangerous cars in islands? Yeah, of course there are dangerous
one hundred
cars in
percent.
islands, and you you can get hit by. Does it stop you from going out? You still live your life.
I'm kind of glad that I that wasn't in my awareness, because I knew there were snakes and I seen a few snakes. I nearly stood on a snake one day too, because I hadn't seen snakes for the time that I was there, and I was like, I'd love to see a snake, and then it came to the point where nearly stood on one, and that did scare me. But that being said, I think the fact that I didn't think there was poisonous ones probably helped.
You know, I've seen a lot of interesting things happening here with specific fears of people and the way that the reality is forcing them to face them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Something that seems like coincidence, but if you see this so much of it, you know, it's not. So, for example, somebody who comes, a girl that comes with the fear of spiders, she's the only one that gets a tarantula in her hat. And so she's like, oh, please, you know, I have a tarantula in her. Okay, we can come and kill her. No, no, please don't kill her. I don't want her to die. Can you move me to another hut? So we move her to another hut, and again, she's the only one in the whole retreat that has another tarantula in the other hut, you know? So it's almost as the reality is working with you, you know? You want to get rid of the fear. It's not going to be happening by removing the object of your fear. It's going to happen by being present with the thing that you're afraid of. You can't stop being afraid of the darkness if you're going to be continually living in light and in with the light, sleeping with the light on and so on. Yeah. So it is like the world is giving us opportunities, and we can be like no, and constantly, you know, and end up like Michael Jackson not being able to open the doors because there are germs on the handles. Or we can like bring it on, okay? And there are
Mhm.
prayers, there are songs that are literally about that. I'm calling all the fears in front of me, and I'm calling the fear in front of me to take away its power, because it's only if it's in front of me I can see that it's been the power was in the story, and the power of it was when I allowed my mind to be lost. When I allow myself to sit with it, it loses its
Mhm.
power. Yeah, that's how it's done.
Do you know what? You're so right. There was another guy the time I was there, and I was speaking to him after his time. He had a seriously bad fear of snakes. The whole time he was there, snakes were around his hut, and I was so
Hmm.
confused. It's like, why are you seeing? Why did you see so many? And I didn't. I hardly seen any. So it's. Well, I mean, I don't think I had a huge fear of them, so it wasn't really something I was scared of. So it wouldn't didn't bring it to me. But it's interesting how you share about the spider and the snakes. He had a fear that they were
It's a
trying to eat
it's a
him.
question it's a question of attention, I think also. Yeah, like in psychological sense, those snakes and those things, those triggers, they are there. But for the person who's afraid of them, they will see this everywhere. So that's why, for example, the religious people or people with this kind of dualistic mentality, they see the danger, the darkness, the Satan, the spirits everywhere, and others don't. So in a way, they are making their own hell
Hmm.
by believing in hell, by believing in those things, yeah. And it's not to say that those things don't exist and they are not real. Everything in a way is functioning in our consciousness. So when your attention is tuned to this kind of things and you're projecting, for example, the danger there, it's gonna be there, yeah. And so, you know, the thing with the snakes is also a powerful symbol of many things. It is interesting that in our foundation, in our culture, and in the foundation myth of our culture, is this bad guy. And why is it a bad guy? Because he brings the knowledge. What's wrong about the knowledge? Why the sin is in reaching for the tree of knowledge? Why the sin is listening to somebody else than this powerful creator God that is really an archetype of a jealous father? You're not going to listen to anyone else, only listen to me, and you're not allowed to find out for yourself. And the snake is the one that delivers this knowledge, and that's why it is in this mythology it's the bad guy. But for example, for the Gnostic traditions, knowledge is a good thing. So the snake is the teacher, and in a lot of cultures it is so. So the question is, you know, what happens when you project all the evil outside, like you have in the Irish story? Yeah, what does it mean with the when St. Patrick is chasing the snakes away? In a way, he's chasing the competition. And for some people, for some anthropologists or people who study the culture, it's just a metaphor of what happened when the Christianity invaded and wanted to dominate and exterminate all the pagan beliefs. And for the pagans all over the world, snake is an important figure. So
Hmm.
St. Patrick is representing the institution who wants to hold on to the knowledge and get rid of that snake that's a direct access. So it's interesting for me because ayahuasca, it's full of snake visions. And for Shipibo, for example, it's not mother ayahuasca. They see ayahuasca represented by the snake of anaconda, by the giant snake, by Ronin, called Ronin, which is anaconda. And so it comes back to that,
Mm.
it comes back to that. And are those really the bad guys, in any other way that, like, are we the bad guys because we want to live and we devour the other creatures? So it can be a teacher. It can be a teacher in the context of the jungle, for example, a teacher of attention. Like, don't just walk anywhere careless and, just pay attention where you put your feet and you will be fine. Because the only time you can be actually threatened by most of those snakes is when you step on them. So don't do it. Let them be. Let them have your space. And that could be an inspiration for a lot of religious people who see the evil everywhere, like this evil, for example, represented by the snake, and they don't realize that it's because they want to conquer and dominate the whole world, and then that's why everything starts to be like an enemy. But if you
Mm.
allow the world to be like in the animistic perspective, it's a web of interactions, and you allow those other ways of being to be, maybe then you can actually deal better with your own imbalances and not look for the Satan everywhere, no? So even those little things from the details, from the reality, can be, if you choose them to be part of your story and of your learning, they can play along.
You touched on a few things there that come up for me. So I do see the snake as a master. I see them as a very intelligent creature. Like they're one of the masters of their environment. I've had two encounters while I was in there on my like ayahuasca journey. The snake came twice, two anacondas. I don't know how I felt at the time. It was new to me, but one came right up to my face, and then another one slithered at my feet. Um, and then you talked about so them being they on some the Shipibo tradition they see the snake as they see that as ayahuasca. So I've encountered that, but I've also encountered this female spirit many times on my journey too. That some say is Mother Earth. I've also had an encounter with the devil, and not something that was really in my awareness, but obviously was somewhere in my consciousness. This was a long time ago. This is before in Ireland, but in the same experience, I also was in communication with this female spirit, Mother Earth, Mother Nature, Mother Ayahuasca, but she did teach me that love is the most powerful thing that we have. And before I had this encounter with this demon, which was, I would say, more real than this experience right now that I'm having with you, that scared the living shit out of me. But I ultimately, I stayed true to what she said, and that was feel love, and you know, he went away.
Hmm.
But also it wasn't something that I thought much about. So like have that encounter was, I suppose, I don't know, very surprising as well. Both of them,
Hmm.
so.
Yeah, but for me, what matters is what we do with those things. What we do with the way reality presents. We are all, you can never separate it. Yeah, all the upbringing, the things of the culture, and so on. But the matter is, like, what is working, what is practical, I don't think it's practical to be fighting all the time, to be fighting the reality. So your answer was a good one. You got a certain insight and then you use it to deal with the thing that wasn't so pleasant to be around. But
Mm,
maybe in other circumstances you would suffer more. And people will do. Yeah, they constantly fight with the devil until maybe one day they realize that it's better to give up the fight, no
yes.
matter how defeatistic it sounds, how heretical it sounds in our culture that is based on fighting. Yeah, but sometimes actually give up the fight. That's the
Yeah,
answer.
yeah, and it's that fear based reaction that we get
Hmm.
caught up in. That I suppose there was
Yeah,
a part of me that was in that space, but you know what? I've realized that love is what conquers all. Love is the most
yeah.
powerful force. But
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
love is acceptance. So that's the attitude to fear. Fear is
mm,
constant distrust and constant assuming that the world, universe, or God, or whatever we call it, is not good enough and doesn't know what's gonna what's supposed to happen to us. And opposite to that is trust and acceptance that, like, if I am to die, I'm gonna die. Why should I worry with this, all the time continually? And that's also another paradox in context of this work, because when people apply here and they write their intentions and their emails, I find it fascinating that often in the same email, I will find a list of things that they worry about, what can go wrong, the dangers, possible dangers like snakes and malaria and whatnot. And in the same email, they talk about lack of purpose. They don't see the point in living, they talk about suicidal attempts. So it's like, okay, maybe there is a purpose. Maybe you want to actually live if you are
Hmm.
afraid, of something. But ultimately, I think you can only live truly and happily if you accept that it's gonna end one day, yeah, and then you can be free because you don't need to be afraid anymore. It's reality, it's gonna happen one day. So then it's better to take the good use to make the good use of the time instead of worrying about this thing coming.
Mundo, it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you. I think I could talk on and on and on, but like, do you know what? It's so interesting. I've never had this kind of conversation, and we've talked a little bit, like, but you really are an insightful man, and I said that to you, I think, when I left too, a wise man.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are. You're very I would say balanced in everything, which
Well,
is
I'm
very
working towards it.
refreshing.
It's not my way of seeing myself, but I'm definitely more balanced than I was 10 years ago. So then I have no guarantee, no, how to say, no doubt about the fact that ayahuasca works, even if it takes, even that, like, in a lot of things, I feel like I'm in kindergarten. After 10 years of doing that, I'm only starting to understand certain things about myself, for example. So that could be also a good motivation for the others who come here. Be patient, yeah, because it may take 10 years or more to start getting the things right.
Yeah, it never ends for me. If you were to say, if someone was feeling unsure and but felt the calling, what would you say to them?
I say you will never be sure. It's not about being sure. Being sure is like when you know, and I'm not interested so much in that. In the past, I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in faith. I only want to know. But now I see more and more that faith or trust, it's a choice, yeah? Like you will never get enough information, enough validation from the outside, to, okay, yeah, now everything is under control and I can be sure. You cannot be sure about anything. You cannot be sure what happens here, the way it's gonna go, and so on. I mean, I believe it's for good. I know it's for good. I see so much good coming out of that. But you have to start yourself. Yeah. Choose to trust. Yeah. And it's not just about ayahuasca, it's just about anything. Choose to trust that the things are good and will be good. Yeah. No psychologist no guru, nobody from the outside will guarantee you that, will tell you that. You have to start believing in that. Yeah. Doesn't have to be done through psychedelics, can be done in many different ways. But don't wait for the perfect moment. Yeah, like I think if you are in doubt, that's a good moment to reach for those tools because that's what they are for. And then later you will understand that also it's good for celebration and other things. Yeah, you don't have to be sick to be doing that. But yeah, don't wait for the perfect moment. That's my advice.
Thank you very much, Mundo. An absolute pleasure.
Okay, likewise. And I hope to see you one day either here or maybe one day there. Yeah, in the Green Island.
Hopefully, hopefully.